I was sitting here working on the 2025 garden layout and what we're planting and how much of planting and where we're going to plant it. And it got me thinking that I've never actually seen anyone else organize their garden layout like this. So I figured I'd share it with you guys. Now, in the past, I've always made my garden layouts like this, sort of a hand-drawn layout of what I'm going to plant where, and it's worked really well on a smaller scale. The challenge with that has been keeping some notes to go along with it or referring back to when I've planted certain things. So we tried to do something that's a little more scalable and a little easier to do on the scale or the size of what we're going to be planting here. And that is something like this. So what exactly is this? Well, essentially what I've done is I have transferred our gardens into Excel or into Google Sheets in this particular case, but both would work. And what I've done is I've assigned rows according to the row we're growing in and a foot number according to the full length of our bed. So in our case, we have 7 rows that are 50 feet long. So if you see here, I've got R1, R2, so row 1, row 2, row 3. I've split row 4 into 2. Then we have row 5, row 6, row 7. So that's garden group number 1. Over here, then we have our 8, our 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So we have our full set of 14 or 15 growing rows. It's actually only 14, but we're splitting 4 into 2. What I really like about this system is it's allowed me to assign essentially every linear foot of garden bed to something. So in this case, if we take what we've already planted this year, we can look at garlic, and we've planted German red, German white, and Spanish roja, and I've assigned them into the first 12 feet of garden space. Now, that doesn't mean that one plant per foot. It simply means that in the first foot of garden, we've got German red, and so on and so forth as we go down the list. Now, what I like about this is it allows me to roughly determine how many plants I need to plant for each crop. So whether it's broccoli or cabbage or spinach or carrots, it doesn't really matter. I can break it down by row. Most importantly, though, it's going to easily allow me to transfer this from year to year. So right now we're in 2025. I can duplicate that for 2026, 2027, 2028, and I can see what I've done, see where things need to move, make notes on what worked, and so on and so forth. So I don't have to remember exactly what I planted where in the middle of the next winter. I don't have to find random notes on pages like in my smaller garden layouts. It will all be in one place. This should also allow for easy crop rotation year after year if we need to. If I use garlic again as an example, you can see here where I've added a planted date. Underneath, I can also add a note on when we harvested. I can add notes on if we've had any problems with the crop, or if it was an exceptionally good crop in terms of production or taste or yield or whatever you want to call it. I can add notes all in one place, again, making it really easier to transfer and track from year to year. I don't want to dive down the rabbit hole of garden setup. I think that's kind of its own topic altogether. So what I'm going to focus on here, just answering one simple question, that is why we went with 50-foot rows. And the reason behind that really comes down to just doing some research out online that it seems to be somewhat of an already used consensus or measurement that is popular amongst market gardeners. So kind of a tried and true method that we figured we'd adapt. The second major point is it fit really well within kind of the greater layout we have planned on the acreage or on the small farm here. And that was kind of the two main determining factors. Now, after a little bit more research, I figured out that, well, it also makes it really easy to try and quantify how many seeds you're going to need to plant. Everything's broken down into 50-foot or 100-foot rows. It also works well if you're using tools for planting like seeders. We don't have them right now. We plan to start by hand planting, but if we find that that is just taking too much time, maybe some seeders are in our future. The other thing it'll work well with is things like row covers. So the brassicas, for example, are susceptible to cabbage moth. We're going to want to put row covers on those while those plants are developing. Those are easier to handle in 50-foot rows than, say, 100-foot rows. Finally, I'm hoping that working in this manner just allows for easier succession planting. So for things like beets or carrots or lettuces, things that we don't want all ripening and ready to harvest at once, we can succession plant a little easier. So we could plant one 50-foot row of carrots, but that's only one portion of our 36-inch wide bed. We should be able to fit 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 rows of carrots in that 36 inches, meaning maybe 2 weeks later we plant the next 50 feet, and then 2 weeks after that, the next 50 feet. That should give us some succession harvesting come fall time, not having all of our crop ripen at once. Finally, seeds. if you're like me, I always seem to wind up going to the store and buying far more seeds than I need, or buying seeds for crops or plants that I already have just because I don't quite remember what's stored at home. I decided to change it up this year and finally make a database for everything that we currently have. So if you see here, we've got vegetables in one column on the left-hand side. We've got all of our current flower seeds that we have in our stock on our right-hand side, cataloged by alphabetically, basically by plant. We've got some subtypes if there's specific things to talk about. We've got the different cultivars, so it's a very specific cultivar that we want to plant. I've got a type for a few different notes. This is more pertaining to, climbing cucumbers or pole beans. It could be climbing peas, for example, or determinate or indeterminate tomatoes, just helping me know what exactly that plant is without having to go and dig out the seed packet. Some other information I've included here is the company we've bought the seeds from, the seed year that we purchased them, and the usual lifespan of those seeds. Now, I don't typically follow lifespan. For example, I've had kale that I bought, and I believe it's in here somewhere if I scroll down. Right here, it's this Curly Scarlet. We bought another pack in 2023, but for the previous years, all up until that 2023 year, I was using 2019 seeds without any problem. And then finally, the last two columns here are a use again. So did we like that particular plant? Did it produce well? Did we like the taste of what it grew? Easy check mark if we do. And then on top of that, if there's something that we have a little bit of seeds of and we plan to plant again, but need to purchase more, I can throw a check mark in there. So when it comes time to go shopping and buy seeds, I'm not necessarily having to spend money, or I'm not spending money on things we don't need. I am solely buying exactly what's in our purchase more column. Now, I obviously haven't finished that for this year. As you can see, this is all still completely empty. And in fact, I'm just starting to put our to-buy list together, what we need, what we have, and I'm working through my tomatoes and peppers, and I'll go through my whole list. And I'm not going to walk through the whole list of plants in this video. We will get into that into much future time. At this point, I just really wanted to share our layout, what we're doing, and see if it's something that might help you plan your layout as you're coming into gardening season. Well, folks, just a really quick video there. Nothing fancy or convoluted in any way. It's just something I've never seen done as far as layout and garden organization really goes. And I can attribute it to Asia. I can attribute it to my wife. I was ready to do it all on paper again. She was like, definitely use Excel or Sheets. It'll be far easier. And she was right. This seems like a great way that we can keep track of it moving forward. So hopefully it might help you in planning your garden. You could do it at any scale, any size, and hopefully it helps us as we move from year to year to year. Whether it works or doesn't, you guys will be the first to know.